Welcome everyone to another episode of Life Coach Code. In this podcast, we have a special guest. But first, I want to tell you about something really extraordinary, something that you would not like to miss. This November, from 11th till 14th of November, we are organizing a summit. It's called the Superhuman Summit. Each coach that was part of Life Coach Code that we carefully interviewed, we selected the few individuals that are experts in specific topics, and during the course of 4 days, we will target each of the 4 fundamental pillars of a human being: the spirit, the mind, the body, and the heart. Each of the 4 days is going to be focused on one of these 4 fundamental pillars. We're going to start with the spirit, and on this day, we're going to have coaches that will talk about how to find your purpose, how to reshape your belief system, how to raise your consciousness, all topics that are aligned with the pillar of the spirit. And all topics are carefully designed so they point from different directions toward the hidden superpower that each of these 4 fundamental pillars carries. So you can better understand it, embrace it, and harness it. This being said, on this summit, you will have the opportunity to meet over 25 coaches during the course of 4 days. There will be workshops, there will be panels that you can be part of the discussion. There will be a lot of gifts that the coaches will give for free to you as a participant on the event. There will be a lot of like-minded individuals that you can network with, and a lot more. This is not just a summit, it's start of a journey. And on this journey, we're going to help each of the people transform into superhuman. It's not like working with a coach. It's like working with over 25 coaches all at once. And all of the coaches are aiming to help you transform in all of these 4 fundamental pillars and dimensions of your being, so you can unleash the superpowers that each of these 4 fundamental pillars carry. Today we have Chuck Barnard. He is one of the speakers on the summit, and he will talk about how to get into the mental state of a superhuman, how to get into the mental state of champions, world-class champions. I want to first introduce Chuck right now, and I want to tell a few words about him so you can get to know him better. So Chuck Barnard specializes in supporting teens and teen athletes in breaking through limiting beliefs to help them reach their full potential, both on and off the field. With 3 decades of experience designing and implementing training programs for teenagers and young adults, Chuck stands out in his field. Through specialized mindset training, Chuck assists individuals in making key mindset shifts to achieve excellence and get to their superhuman mental state that allows them to reach new heights and to become world-class champions. So Chuck, I'm honored to have you on this podcast. Hello, sir, and how are you?
I'm fine, and thank you for having me. It's a great opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Nice. So first of all, let's start and jump right into it. What is the champion's mindset?
On simplest terms, it's the ability to be in that, athletes will often talk about being in the flow state or the zone state. So it's really that ability where your unconscious mind dominates in that athletic event that you're doing, in that sporting event, what have you. Your conscious mind is kind of just gone to sleep, more or less. And those external distractions are gone. So you have this focus, this tunnel vision, and your mind and body, your unconscious mind and body are just like totally in sync. So when somebody is in that flow state, they will often describe things as being, it's almost like an out-of-body experience. Time slows down. There's a whole different kinds of, they see things differently. They can see the field, they can see the activity, whatever it is, gymnastics, wrestling, a team sport, it doesn't matter. They have a different perspective on it. And it's often described as being kind of almost an outer body type experience.
I understand. So you would say that a lot of people that are tapping into this flow state, they have a certain limitations that are in the beginning preventing them to actually embody this mental state. So when you get rid of these limitations, you naturally get into flow. so to say?
Yeah. So yeah, there's essentially 5 stages that I talk about, and I'll be talking about that in the summit too, that we try to take our athletes through, and each one kind of connects to the other. One of the very first things is you got to take responsibility for where you are at in your life in that moment, right? So there's certain things that we mean by taking responsibility. And then one of those aspects of taking responsibility is beginning to look at your past. So we talked about, or you just mentioned that idea of obstacles and things that can prevent getting into that flow state, and beliefs and negative emotions from your past, and sometimes way back in your past at the unconscious level, are interfering with your ability to perform consistently at that peak level. There's a internal battle that can go on, and the athlete's ability to identify those, eliminate those, and overcome those is often the difference between that one who succeeds consistently at the highest levels and those who are great athletes but don't quite achieve maybe their full potential. Oftentimes they aren't even aware of those limiting beliefs lurking in the background, right? Because they're deeply unconscious. I can give one example from baseball. So an athlete whose father was very well-meaning, right? Like wanted their son to be the best. So at a very early age would say things like, you can't let those guys get in your head. You can't let them think they're better than you. You can't. He's telling them what he wants the son not to do, but inadvertently was embedding the suggestion that his son wasn't good enough, that they were getting in his head. So when his son, as he got older, is in these moments, these big games, that unconscious mind would kind of come up, hey, wait a minute, you aren't good enough to be like, you're winning this game. So things would fall apart. And the athlete couldn't figure out why. Like, why am I, quote, choking? Well, it's because the unconscious mind was going, hey, you really aren't good enough. Hey, you really aren't good enough. Once we discovered that and could eliminate that, that's no longer there. And he was then able to like close things out and compete in those moments without that little voice kind of popping in beyond his awareness.
So what will you say that are the most common limiting beliefs that are preventing athletes from reaching their full potential?
Their own ability. So sadly, our brains, we often put our own self-doubt, like, oh man, I don't know. I'm not really quite sure. That guy's really good, or that boy, she's really good. I don't know, those little doubts that come in, and fear, the emotion of fear, and those beliefs are often connected. And I actually, in the presentation I'm going to do, I have a little clip of one of the great track champions of all time, Edwin Moses, who he didn't lose a 400-meter hurdle race for 9 years, 9 months, and 9 days. But in that little clip, he mentions how he believed he could win, right? So you got to get to that point, and there's techniques for doing it, for creating that belief that you are good enough. And when you do, that is really those champions that stand out, who did, they developed, they fought, they put those that little negative voice, they knew how to control it, shut it up, put it in a little box, whatever the metaphor is. That ability to do that is powerful. It's not, I can't tell you it's easy, right? That's what separates the truly great from from those who are just really good.
Do you believe that everybody can achieve such greatness? Do you believe that everybody has that potential to just silence that voice, be it with certain techniques or be it with, for example, working with you? Or are there people that just cannot be reached, that cannot be transformed to silence this voice? So they can, the limit they can reach is just being really good, not being a champion.
Yeah, it's really about training, right? So that those stages I talked about, there's a terminology that I use about applying heat, and it's habit, emotion, attitude training. You have to train your mind like you train your body. This is where a lot of teens that I work with and that I see a lot in the States, they know they need to train the body, and they get the personal trainer, the coach, and they start working out every day. They do all that stuff to train the body, and then they'll go and they'll take their basketball shots or their batting practice or whatever the sport is, their gymnastics, and they'll do the sport specific training that they know they need to do, where they're training their body again in the skill, and they ignore the mind. The mind has to be trained. By using the physical aspect, you can train the mind as well, learning to push yourself to the limit. There's a guy, Mark Devine, who's a former Navy SEAL. He does a whole bunch of training programs all about that. It's like a Navy SEAL kind of training for the average Joe, where they push your body to the limit. And always the first barrier of like, I can't go any further is always a mental barrier. Your body can go further. You just, your mind's saying it can't. And once you kind of break that barrier, the next one becomes a little bit easier and a little bit easier and a little bit easier. It's again, that I show a clip of Roger Bannister breaking that 4-minute mile. He believed he could, but it had never been done before. But as soon as he broke it, it was broken 3 or 4 different times, right? So once he broke that barrier, boom, other people, they saw the reality of it. So once you know you can push beyond a certain barrier, oh, then there'll be another one, right? Now, yes, there are some genetic, physiological, mental caps. We don't know what those are, right? I mean, we aren't sure what they are. We don't know exactly how fast can a human body actually run 100 meters. We don't know, but they aren't going to be able to run 100 meters in 1 second. All right. There is a cap. Don't know what it is yet. So
yeah. I really believe that we as humans have this mental governor for some reason on us. And with the modern society or the way we live our lives, the less we push ourselves outside of our comfort zone, the less we do things that are truly uncomfortable, the more this governor takes control over our lives. And we really believe that for so less work than what we need to really put, we will achieve the results that we want to achieve. This is because we are not actually doing the things that we need to do. We are not exercising. We are not pushing ourselves. So when we imagine, oh, I need to exercise to do this, I need to exercise to gain muscle, I need to exercise to do the 6-pack, I need to exercise to be the professional basketball player, we undermine how much exercise is in question, how much work is in question. And we believe that if we push past it, we cannot do it. We believe that it's just too much for us because we haven't tried it, as you say. But if we have somebody, a coach or a person, trainer, that will push us because they know this is just a mental trick. They know that when we believe that we are done, that we cannot move any longer, it's just 20% of our potential. That our mind is fooling us to preserve energy, to not put us in danger, or many other biological or evolutionary reasons. But if there is somebody to just push us past this checkpoint, we will understand how much potential we actually have. I remember when I first ran my half marathon, I was seeing people, because in our city, the track is you are running half marathon 2 times to run a full marathon. So when you finish half marathon, you are actually seeing the people who are running the full marathon just go the same circle again. And I remember thinking to myself, just this is not possible. I know how much tired I am right now. Like I ran the whole circle. I cannot barely breathe, not just keep running. To run this again, the same circle, not possible. Only superhumans do it. I cannot do it. Then few years passed and I read one quote. It said, the everything that you want to learn about yourself, you can learn in 26 miles. And it inspired me to say, let's do it. Let's just try and do it as much as we can run. Let's just try run a marathon. The moment I finished the first circle and went to keep running so I can finish my marathon, I remember that my mind started screaming so loud, I thought it's next to me. I can hear it as a person. And the moment you are reaching it's the 30th kilometer, you are no longer having any carbohydrates within you, your body to produce. So basically the body is eating from itself. So it's called hitting the wall in runner's terms. So when I remember clearly when I hit the wall, my mind literally just jumped out of me and started screaming that we don't need to do this. We don't need to prove anybody wrong. We don't need this, just showing me every reason why I should stop. Every possible reason why I should stop running, just to ease my life, to not torture myself. But I kept running. After this, I remember like some reservoir of energy open up in me. And I could feel just insane amount of peace, energy. I was tired as hell, but I felt so much peace, so much energy. It was like I was watching myself from third person view. And I was insanely happy for some reason. And the mind just kept getting more silent and more silent and more silent. And I realized that I reached another checkpoint that I didn't thought possible I can reach, that my capacity was much bigger than I believed it is. And I believe this is exactly what you're talking about. This when the person reached the 4 mile, they believe they can do it. Other people didn't. And this is the breaking point when you're going against your belief and you're proving your mind wrong by will or by just being stubborn, just pushing past your limits and proving your mind wrong. And this is so powerful. But I believe there are ways to do it in a much graceful way. Of course, you need to push and suffer to push past your limits, but there is a way that somebody can show it to you, like a coach like yourself. So tell me, how many of your athletes are of the athletes that you train, that you coach, are stumbling upon this mental barrier, and what you do with them to get over this barrier, to show them that they have much more potential that they believe they have?
Yeah, so let me again, I have focused my energies on teenagers, right, and early college athletes, and so there's one track athlete who was one of the top in the state here in the United States. This was her junior year. She had really pretty much dominated track meets. She had one competitor from the northern part of the state. She was in the southern part of the state, who beat her in the state meet. So coming into her senior year, she was ready. She wanted, like, I'm motivated, I'm ready to kick butt, blah, blah, blah. And then the first meet, she won, but her time wasn't any better. Second meet, she won. Her time wasn't any better. So she's beginning to go, uh-oh, what's going on? I'm winning. but these beliefs and these doubts started creeping in. So there's some techniques I use. The primary one I use is something called timeline therapy, which is incredibly powerful technique for helping people go back, essentially cleaning up their memories. We find where these beliefs may have originated from, and using some techniques, they literally let go of it psychologically, and they feel it in their body. When you inevitably, when somebody's let go, they just, it's kind of like, oh, they feel it. So going into her last regular season meet with this athlete, and you could begin to see signs of her like body language getting worse and worse. Like she's still winning. She's still winning every meet because she was that good in her league, but she was beginning to doubt her ability to compete in college, which is what she wanted, because her times were no better than her junior year. So she's going, oh man, did I reach my peak? I don't think I can run any faster. You know, I probably, what am I going to do? How can I do this? Because she had worked, done all those things you're supposed to do to get faster, and she wasn't. Well, we discovered some limiting beliefs using this timeline therapy before her final regular season meet. That meet, she set a building record. The next meet, she set a league record. The next meet, she set a regional record. The next meet, she set the state record, won the state championship, and she got a Division I scholarship. And the only difference was letting go of that doubt, the belief, and the fear. And we didn't have to push her through any of these, like athletic kind of feats to prove that she could do it. We just used some of these psychology techniques to change that belief or get rid of the limiting belief, and the rest, her body had been trained well enough. She had been physically prepared enough. We just were able to remove that belief in a fairly simple process. Sometimes it will take quite a bit of time to discover what some of those beliefs are, because they can be unconscious. So you got to try to pull it out through questioning. But once you identify them, the process of letting them go isn't generally complicated or time consuming.
Yeah, so athletes are faced with a lot of high pressure situations. How do you prepare them to face such situations and still keep their excellence?
Yeah. So again, it's going back to what I said earlier about the habit, emotion, attitude training. We want to begin to get that set up anyway, so they can kind of become their own coach and constantly begin to prepare themselves. There's anchoring is probably one of the most powerful tools that you teach athletes to do. And we all get anchored. And anchored is like Pavlov's dog, the famous experiment where, you ring the bell when you're feeding the dog salivates, and soon just ringing the bell causes the dog to salivate. So you're linking an external stimulus to a state that you want. So teaching young athletes how to do this consistently can be incredibly powerful. So I'll give you another example of a young teenage baseball player who, his team wasn't that good. They were the last team to get into the playoffs. They miraculously beat a higher seeded team in their first game. Now they were facing another top seeded team with one of the best pitchers in the state, and the kid I was working with had to pitch against him. And he was good. He was a good pitcher, but he wasn't one of the best. And he knew he had to be on his game. So I worked with him for about 10 minutes before the game on some anchors, some techniques where you begin to visualize the energy flow and all this. so that he would have those tools on the mound. Well, in high school baseball in the state of Maine, which is where he was, there's pitch count rules. And that means if a player gets to a certain limit, they have to come out of the game. Games are 7 innings long. And it's not usual for a pitcher to go a complete game because of pitch count rules. Well, he pitched 10 innings. He did lose the game 1-0 in the bottom of the 10th inning. The other pitcher, who was one of the best pitchers in the state, had been out of the game for like 2 innings already. And he even got out in the last inning before they went extra innings. There had been a bases loaded situation, and I don't know, how much people know about baseball from outside of the United States, but it was a very tense situation where the winning run could have easily scored. And he told me that, no, you know what? I stepped off the mound and I remembered all those things you told me to do. And I did them, went back in, got focused, and he got out of it without giving up a run in that inning. So he really pitched the best game of his entire life in that moment. And he's really just applied some of those techniques of being able to access that. And I had done work with him previously, right? So some of those limiting beliefs were already cleaned up and gone and stuff. He just needed a reinforcer. That's all.
So these limiting beliefs are actually like ropes that are keeping us tight. And whenever we try to do something that's outside of our domain of comfort, or whatever our beliefs say that we can do, we are experiencing self-sabotage in a way. Like, for example, if you don't believe that you're good enough in math and you get a math test, you will fail, no matter if you know the math or not, because whatever you're trying to think and calculate, you will not be able to use that part of the brain because of the belief that you are not good enough. Or if you believe that you are not fast runner, you will not be able to push yourself to run really fast. So these beliefs are basically like the programs, in our code, in our spirit, in our mind, that are allowing us to be who we can be. So if we reframe this, if we reprogram these programs, then we are basically reshaping who we can be. Am I correct about this? Or
Absolutely. And for your brain to understand something that you believe to be true versus a doubt, right? Because there's some things I don't know, I'm not sure about that. The reason your brain can recognize one or the other is it has to code it in a particular way, right? So when we begin to understand that my brain codes a belief in this way, if there's something we believe that we don't want to believe, we change the code. So there's processes that you can do to change how your brain stores the information for what you believe to be true that you don't want to believe. And when you change the code, you change the meaning. And when you change the meaning, you change the results. So yes, it's absolutely, there's a famous study done where scientists took fleas and they had them in a petri dish, one of these little science dishes, and fleas can jump. They can jump like I don't know, 10 times their 100 times their body height, whatever it is. So the fleas would jump out of the little petri dish. They then put fleas in a petri dish with a cover on it, and the fleas would jump and jump and hit the cover, so they would stop jumping that high. In time, they took the cover off, and the fleas would no longer jump out of the petri dish because these little fleas had come to believe in their own simplistic way that they couldn't jump out of the petri dish. so they wouldn't. Mentally, you think of a flea's brain, but they had been trained that they couldn't jump as high, so they don't jump out of the petri dish. It's been similar. You hear similar stories about how they train elephants. They not to wander off. They'll put a chain around a baby elephant, and it can't go beyond it, and then they put a little string that the elephant could break easily, but he won't break it because doesn't believe he can anymore, right? So there's stories like that from the animal kingdom, but that's what we do. You had mentioned as an analogy, in academics too, right? Like if you don't believe in math. Well, I worked with a student for over an extended period of time who was not good at math, didn't believe he was good at math, scored in the bottom 10% on standardized tests in math. It took a little while in his case. There's lots of other things going on, but when he's finally willing, and this is another piece to this, is lots of times people begin to hold on to a negative belief because it's become part of their identity. And when that's the case, there's a lot more that we need to do and to help them let go of that. A lot of that can be with teenagers around academics and labels that they give themselves. And it can be a little bit more challenging, but once it's gone, so back to this student, in less than one school year, he went from bottom 10th percentile to solidly average and increased his math, the grade level he's working on, by over 2 grade levels. All because, well, a couple things. We got him into some good habits, but the belief was gone. And then he was able to start accessing that learning. And it was like, oh, once he accessed it, man, it just kept going. So
Do
yeah.
you think this same dynamic can be also applied in business? There are entrepreneurs who just start a business and they cannot reach certain checkpoint. They cannot, for example, earn their first $10,000, or they cannot grow their business. They cannot scale their business. They're hitting some ceiling somewhere. So do you believe the same dynamics that champions use, that you are working with and reframing in their mind, the same dynamics can be used to reframe an entrepreneur's mind? For example, if they're hitting a ceiling, they cannot reach certain amount of money they want to reach in their business, they cannot scale it. Do the work, and after they remove these beliefs, after they change their mindset, that this is the key to help them excel in this domain.
Absolutely. I've had to work on myself, because coming from a background of working in education and with teenage athletes, and not running my own business per se for all those decades, beginning to switch gears where I'm now working on my own, I had to work on myself, right? There were some of those. Oh, I am a educator and coach, which I am, but I wasn't a businessman. Well, yes, I am. I could be a businessman, right? So there are labels that I had identified with as myself that are great. I want to keep those. Oh, I want to add some labels. Oh, I don't want that label. Let me take that label away. So yeah, it's a lifelong process. And this is one of the reasons I think I love working with teenagers, is they're at a point in their life, they're just beginning to get mature enough where they begin to realize that, oh, man, there's some things I really need to learn and want to learn. How, help me learn them, but we don't teach them these things. And when we get adults who go, oh man, I need to hire this business coach or this coach and that coach, and we spend lots of money on it because there are some things that we really probably could have learned as teenagers, and maybe even should have learned, that we were never taught. And I'm like, That's wrong, man. Teenagers are in the business of learning. That is their job. Let's give them some essential learning. And that's one of the reasons I kind of focus on them. But to your point, yeah, that's exactly, I mean, this stuff is good for anybody and everybody. And it's partly why I want teenagers and their families to do it together. One, the parents can benefit greatly. Two, the teenagers then begin to see their parents going through the same stuff, and the bond relationship that begins to develop as they're going through these things together. Yeah, it's powerful. It's powerful. And it's when two or more people go through it together, it's much easier to meet these challenges head on. So, and it's the initial coaching program I offer is about cleaning up all, it's not about building the positive mindsets yet. It's really about building the habits and cleaning up so you can build the positive stuff. And I wish I could say it's easy. It's each piece that we do, each little coaching element is easy. Doing it consistently over time is not so easy. And that's where parents, athlete, student, what have you, coach, working together, much more likely to get the results. Same with letting them join a community of other people doing it. You mentioned this, I think, when you introduced me about this summit that you're organizing with all these people together. That's the power of synergy. When you're talking about the spirit and then the mind and then the body and then the heart and all these extra, that's the power of synergy. It's incredible what that can do.
Yeah, I completely agree. And what we are trying to achieve with all of this is just to focus our energies each day to each of these four pillars with a community and people that are specialized in each of these topics, so people can really tap into each of these four fundamental pillars. And I know everything is interconnected. Like, you cannot speak about mindset without speaking about beliefs, right? You cannot speak about the body and eating healthy without speaking about habits and how you are approaching these habits. But when you go into one of these and focus your energy and intent and all the topics, and you observe this subject from different angles, then you can really understand it and see the clear puzzle piece, so you can put it with the other puzzle pieces together, and then you will have a clear picture of who you are as a human and what capabilities you actually have as a human. Because you really have superpowers, you're not using them yet. You don't know how to use them. Nobody taught you, nobody taught us. We needed to find out, learn ourselves through trial and error. That's why I put so many people together, because all of them have a different point of view on the one same topic, and they can share, and all of these points of views are coming together like puzzle pieces, so people can understand a greater picture about this.
Yeah, it was a great idea and a great concept, and I commend you for it, because you're totally right. And that knowledge from all those different things, I'm looking forward to it as well, so it's and never stop learning, right? You never it's always something or somebody else who might even figure something new out, or a new way to keep pushing us to achieve great things.
Definitely. And when we are talking about the mind, I want to just mention that the mind is like the intermediary between the belief system and the body. So the mind is what allows us to either shift a belief or what the belief will say for our body to do. The mind is in the middle. It's in the mediator. So I want to ask you, what are some techniques that you use yourself in your business to help you tap into this superhuman state of mind, that you are the most successful, you're most you're most achieving your goals, let's say, and you're basically not letting these negative patterns affect you so much?
Yeah, so in the rituals that I've created, and again, this is not new, right? Like this kind of information has been passed down for a long time, but there's some principles in a morning and evening ritual. We all have routines. We get up in the morning and there's certain routines we go through. Before we go to bed, there's certain routines we go through. It's cross-cultural. It's like what those routines are vary like all over the place. The difference between a routine and a ritual is a ritual, you really think it out and you have a purpose and it's designed. Routine just has it's become a habit. It just somehow became a habit. Necessity, this is what, oh, got to brush my teeth, go to the bathroom, go to bed. That's my routine, whatever. So my rituals began by looking, all right, what do all these high achievers, the best of the best, do? What common elements are there? And began to find out that breath work, very powerful, right? So learning to control your breathing often is closely connected with a mindfulness or meditative or prayer practice, depending on cultural backgrounds and things, those have different connotations, but some sort of spiritual kind of practice I've incorporated that's associated with some breath work. There are what I refer to as anchoring techniques with that. Music is a really powerful force for kind of helping manage those emotional states. And journaling, gratitude journal. I don't know if there's any, I'm telling you, that might be one of the most important pieces. A little over a year ago, I lost my wife to cancer, and we had been together for 30 years. So, over the past, it was a year ago this past July, so it's been about 14 months. Those practices where I was able to also begin to grieve and go through all that, manage those emotions, not get them, not let them control me. And I tell people too, it's like, I actually had a student this past year who was grieving and said, I can relate. I'm going through it too. And it's okay. The sadness, things those are negative emotions only when we hold on to it and when we get lost in it and when we dwell in it. We have it for a purpose. We need to use those things like mindfulness, prayer, whatever it is, to learn from it, then acknowledge it and let go of it, so we aren't sucked into that kind of those negative emotions of fear and guilt and anxiety and depression and all those kind of things that aren't good for the mind, they aren't good for the body, they aren't good for the spirit. So those rituals in my life are how I go about that. Gratitude, do a little inventory. All right, how was this day? What can I improve on? What didn't go well? Oh, it was a great day. Fantastic. Good. Just write that down and move on. But it's a habit that I started quite a while ago, and it's incredibly powerful. And you hear that all the time. And those are some of the common elements. Some sort of spiritual practice that often includes breath work, gratitude journal, what I refer to as anchoring techniques, music, aromatherapy, and of course, people who will do the body will talk about exercise, right? So that component, some sort of physical kind of piece, is really important.
Yeah, I love what you said about grief and how these emotions actually are not negative. They're only negative when we hold on to them for a long period of time. But the purpose of emotion is not to hold onto the emotion. The purpose of emotion is to tell us something, to give us a message, to give us maybe energy, or maybe move us away from something. So we can recalibrate, we can sit with us and choose our next direction. Some emotions even give us energy and potential to even break further and achieve more of our potential. Grief can sometimes be a great motivator if you're sitting with it, if you're not running away from it. Grief can be a transformational, a powerful force when you are just sitting with the grief and understanding how much somebody meant to you, or how deep your emotions go, how deep your soul goes. All of this can be doorways to your real potential, real power from within you, if you sit with them and let your being process them the way they're meant to be processed. So I know a lot of athletes, world-class athletes, they have these rituals and routines. We know about Rafael Nadal. Rafael Nadal is famous for his routines and rituals that he is doing each match, each set, each game. He is doing certain things that are putting him into the zone. And I believe all of us have certain things that we are doing that are just helping us clear our mind and focus better so we can perform better. And I love what you said, that you have certain routines and rituals, and the difference between routines and rituals, that we all have routines. The rituals, the difference is just the intent and the purpose behind doing this routine, that it becomes a ritual. I have rituals. I know a lot of other people that have rituals. And I know for me, I can speak for me, that these rituals are helping me clear away everything that's taking attention from your mind and focus and perform. That's what they help me with, to put me in a certain mental state. That's why they help me with. Once I had a lot of rituals that I've been doing, they were taking a lot of time from me, and they started even being, superstition way. So I want to ask you, do you see a lot of routines in your athletes? And do you believe there is a link between obsessive compulsive disorder and routines? And what is the difference between a routine controlling you and you controlling the routine itself, so you can get into this mental state?
That's a great question, because the compulsive disorder, being a little bit of a uptick of that in teenagers, which I find rather curious. So without going into details about that, what you had just said really is a difference, is that becomes all controlling, right? That they cannot not do that habit. And, there's lots of causes and things behind that. So the real switch is who's in control, right? The ritual, I'm in control of it and I use it with that purpose, while the other, it controls a person. They cannot not do it. They have to go wash their hands repeatedly, or whatever it might be. And that could be debilitating versus enlightening and freedom giving. So I can't say that I know of a situation where one became like, where a ritual became compulsive, because the compulsivity disorder, there's a whole lot of different causes than the reason a ritual is created. So, but I'm kind of glad you brought that up, because stress, right, which is, and how people react to stress and trauma that can come from stress, can trigger all kinds of things that become unhealthy. So it's important to again, I'm going to go back to why I work with teenagers, and I'm going to, again, it goes beyond teen athletes, but I'll use teen athletes as some statistics that have come out of the United States, the NCAA. so there's a survey done by the American College Health Association about 195,000 athletes, college students. Many of them were athletes, and 35% of those in the previous 12 months had felt depressed. 50% had felt overwhelming anxiety. That's 1 out of every 2. When those things aren't dealt with properly, you begin to see all kinds of dangerous, quite frankly, can be quite dangerous behaviors and habits, illnesses, injury rates, all these things begin to kind of take effect, right? So the mind-body connection there. And that's one of the things we're beginning to see an increase in that's got me concerned, not just in athletes. You're seeing it in athletes, you're seeing it out of athletes, teen athletes, but that rise of, well, there's 2 words that were used in the United States, the CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control, saw that between 2009 and 2021 in the United States, the percentage of teenagers who said they had persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness increased from 26% to 45%. So 45% of teenagers by 2021 were experiencing persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. And we're seeing all kinds of negative consequences of that in health and injury and mental health stuff. So they, you had brought up the compulsive disorder, but I think my point is that if we aren't careful, don't teach them good mental care skills, these things can fester and become something more serious.
Yeah, what is, in your opinion, something that anyone can use, any teenager can use to take care of their mental health, or something to not do? For example, spending too much time on social media, because I truly believe from the statistics that you said, that you showed here, that probably one of the biggest reasons for these feelings of hopelessness and sadness is probably the change of the lifestyle we have as humans, with all the social media, the internet, and all the other dynamics in society that changed.
Yeah, so this, I'd be speaking to parents, be very, very, very wary of, kind of check in on your kid and how much social media they're doing. So to answer your question in short, try to, in the habits that we're helping to build with these kids, is fill their mind with good stuff. There's a parable that's told about a young prince who is at some social gathering, and they're drinking tea, they're wandering around the room, socializing, and he's got his teacup out, and somebody bumps into him accidentally, and he spills his tea all over him, and he starts to get very angry and upset. And the king pulls the prince aside and says, "Why did you spill tea?" He said, "Well, somebody bumped into me. They spilled it all over my royal garments and blah, blah, blah." And said, no, you spilled tea because you have tea in the cup. Whatever you put in the cup is what will spill out over it. So the point being is, you got to fill yourself with good stuff, so that when somebody bumps into you, because that happens in life all the time, the good stuff will come out. So social media, sadly, the news, sadly, is full of bad stuff, negative stuff. And that's what that's what kids are getting filled with. So part of what I tell them is, oh man, you got to fill yourself with good stuff and listen to some good music. And I don't mean, sometimes music people will listen to might be sad, angry music, depressing music. and they just get sucked into that because they feel angry and depressed. And I'm like, no, no, no. Find some music that makes you feel good, that makes you want to dance, that makes you want to sing, and do that, man. Fill it with good stuff. Get some adages and some sayings and some slogans, and do that. There's an app you can get, Pep Talk. I don't know if you're familiar with it at all. I don't even know where. I don't know if it's worldwide or whatever it is, but you can subscribe to that, and every morning you'll have, pep talks come to your phone, and you can fill your mind with good stuff. For those of who have who are religious, your spiritual books and all are typically filled with lots of wisdom and positive things that you should focus on, right? So you fill your cup with good stuff. And there's been research that shows for every negative you hear, you need 3 to 5 positives to counteract the negative. So if you think of kids who've heard negatives a lot, they need a whole lot more positives. And they got to fill the cup with good stuff. That could be one of the most. That's where that gratitude journal comes in, right? You start. Have you ever heard of Nick Vujicic? Do you know who he is or heard of him? Or
Yeah, I know. He's the guy that has no arms, no legs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So seeing role models like that, right? So like I show him as an example all the time because his smile, his talk is so genuine, right? Like it's not a forced smile. And you go, guy's got no arms, no legs. Like how can you be so happy, right? And for him it was a lot of religious things that in his life. But that's what I tell the kids is you got to find something you're grateful for. And I've worked with some kids who've come from some awful backgrounds where you go like, yeah, okay, all right, let's start. What are you grateful for? You got today. You can be grateful for today because today is a new day that you can do something great today, right? You've got arms and legs. Nick Vujicic doesn't. He's got none. Let's find something to be grateful for.
Yeah, I love what you said. I love what you say about filling your cup with beautiful things. I believe it's such a beautiful concept because I know that if you're feeding yourself with a lot of negative information, no matter your intent, as you say, you will be bumped by someone and you will spill your cup. And these things that we're putting inside our mind, the information will spill out. So if you're not, as you say, training kindness and gratitude every day, if you're not filling yourself with positive energy, with songs that are making you want to dance, you will easily probably say something, even if it's as simple as saying something bad to someone else and ruining their day. It's still a negative thing, and it could have been avoided if you just lived your life happier. And to live your life happier, you can just feed your mind with positive things, feed your mind with happy things, feed your mind with things that are healthy for you. Just like we feed our body with a healthy food, we can feed our mind with healthy food. And the guy who said Nick Vujicic, like, I love him, and he's one of the first inspirations that I was watching when I was young, and seeing him, how like his happiness, as you say, his sincere happiness, and how he manages his life having no limbs. It was such a outside of the usual thinking that you cannot just be inspired by him. And he's not, all that he's doing, he's not even 1% worried about his limbs being gone. He's living life better than people who have a lot more than what he has. So he proves, he's a real life proof that you don't need to have a lot of things to live happy life or to be your best self. You just need to manage your mental state. as we can say. And managing your mental state is as simple as feeding your mind with health information, right? Every day, feeding your mind with healthy things. And it's a beautiful concept. I didn't know about this fable, but thank you for sharing it with me. So, and there is always something to be thankful for. There is always something to be thankful for. As you say, you're alive today. You can change something today. Today, in the now, you have the power to change your future. I read a few days ago one thing, and it really struck with me. Whenever we are thinking about time travel, we are thinking about going in the past and changing something in the past, even a tiny little thing, just so we can change the course of time and we can save the future from something terrible. Well, today is the day that you will probably want to go back to in the future if you didn't change something. So you have the chance now. You time travel and you can change something. And you have always, as I said, something to be thankful for. You are alive. There are a million processes in your body happening that are, the sole purpose is for you to stay alive. Trillion processes that are happening every millisecond that are helping you stay alive. The sun is shining, there is food, people are working their jobs every day, waking up in 6 o'clock to make you have bread, warm bread every day. So there are a lot of things that if you just sit and think about and focus on these things, there are trillion things that you can find. The sole fact that you're alive, that you're existing, that you were the fastest sperm and you won the fundamental race of your life, and now you're alive, that sole fact is something to be thankful for. You didn't ask for it, you earned it, you won. You're the champion of life. So live like a champion, live like you won each day. Like every day is a won for you. You already won. You don't have to prove anything or try to win anything. You don't need anything to feel happy and enough of who you are. If from that state you want to do something, you want to become a champion in sports, do it. But don't come from a place of lack. Come from a place of being a champion, because you already won. You are a champion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, when you think of the survivors, right? And by survivors, I mean people who've overcome just some of the most horrific situations that you can imagine. It is that they've been able to find something in that moment, something to look at where it gives them the hope, right? Gives them that positive. They will start talking to themselves about the good things and the positive things. They will go inside their mind. It was John Milton back in the 1600s when he wrote Paradise Lost. And he said, the mind is an incredible thing. In and of itself, it can make a hell of heaven or a heaven of hell. And that ability to do that is what people who overcome some of those, horrific situations do. They make that, they're able to make that switch in their mind and focus on something in the moment to give them hope, something to hold on to, something there. And that it's powerful. I'm not saying it's easy, but it begins with a simple process of building some habits in your life of taking responsibility, right? I said those 5 stages. Here's the first one. Here I am. I am now going to do this to make sure things go well. I am going to interpret this that happened to me differently, right? It's some message there, and I'm going to find out what it is, right? Those little shifts. That's what you need to do. And when I talk about Nick Vujicic, who's an incredible role model, kind of one of my heroes, but the more I thought about it, it's like, you know what? Yeah, absolutely, incredible guy, great hero. But the ones who get no press in his story might be the real heroes, and that's his parents. The ones who helped him develop that mindset, develop that mind, helped him get through those times, helped give him those words of encouragement they might be the true heroes because they enabled him to get to this point where he's impacting millions of people every year all over the globe.
So I want to ask you where we are talking about the mind and all these things. Like, can you give us a glimpse about what you're going to talk about in the Superhuman Summit?
Yeah, so I will be talking to people about the 5 stages that I've kind of alluded to here, what those are, why they're important. I'll show some video clips of some people, talk about what separated those people, and then I'll give them 3 tools that they can begin using right away to help train that mind. So some 3 simple tools that they can begin incorporating into a ritual that hopefully they'll begin to create. And I will share some information on how they can get in touch with me on doing a 70-day challenge, which is really, that 70-day challenge is the framework for my 70-day coaching program, Become Your Own Life Coach, that I do. Now, obviously, what I'd be giving away is I'm not giving away my coaching. I'm not giving away all the kind of the lessons that go with it and all those things, but the framework, if they can do it on their own, they will have absolute profound impact on their life. So I will give them kind of, this is what you need to do. These are what you should do each day. Go at it, right? But I think we all know that, like people make New Year's resolutions and the vast majority never follow through. Well, if they take what I talk about in my talk and work on trying to build those habits, use those tools, if they actually use it and do the 70-day challenge, wow, they will experience some really great stuff. No doubt in my mind. They won't get there's some things that they won't get without coaching, but it's possible they can do it on their own. So that's what I'll talk about, and that's what I'll kind of gift to them, anybody who wants it. So,
wow, that sounds really awesome. I'm so hyped for your talk on the summit. I really cannot wait for the summit to happen. And so tell us, Chuck, thank you first of all for being on this podcast. Tell if somebody wants to get in contact with you, where they can find you, and what they should type, where they should type.
Yeah, so the best way to get in touch with me is my personal website, CoachChuck360.com. That's CoachChuck360.com. And on that, there's an icon, says contact me. You can see all my social media, so you can get in touch with my social media stuff. You can watch my videos. You can reach out to me by just going to CoachChuck360.com. If anybody's interested in learning more about programs I offer, they can schedule a discovery call with me.
Perfect. So we're gonna put the link in the description down. And thank you again. I had such a fun time and pleasure, and it was such an inspiring talk today. I just, again, can't wait to hear you on the summit and to listen to you.
Yeah, so another thing they can do is they could just, I think you can see that QR code, so people could just scan that and get to me as well. So is that coming through on you?
I think it's not showing on the screen.
All right,
it's not showing.
Let me try that again. Absolutely.
Perfect. I guess that's gonna be enough for people to scan it, and they can always go to the link in the description and click it, and they can go and find you. Again, thank you so much for being part of this podcast. I cannot say how excited I am for the Superhuman Summit. And everybody who wants to get a ticket for the 4 days, they can get it from the link in the description below. Again, the Superhuman Summit is 4 days, virtual summit, spirit, the mind, the body, and the heart. Each day we focus on one of the 4 fundamental pillars. And in each day, there will be coaches and experts and workshops that are aiming to help you uncover, unleash, embrace, and harness the superpower that each of these 4 fundamental pillars carry within themselves. So this being said, I think this is something that you don't want to miss, because it's going to be 4 days, over 25 coaches, as I said, workshops, panels, free gifts. As Chuck said, he will offer you literally the framework of his programs for free on the event itself. And all the information that we're going to share inside the event is information that you cannot find anywhere else online. It's going to be exclusive to the people on the event. This is not just ordinary summit, it's a journey. It's a journey, start of a journey where you are becoming a superhuman at the end of it. So in these 4 days, it's like working with over 25 coaches all at once in all these 4 domains, and they're helping you in a beautiful and graceful way, with not overwhelming way, transform yourself into a superhuman, and at least embrace these 4 superpowers that you carry within yourself. The talk we had today with Chuck was just a glimpse and a hint towards what the superpower of your mind is. So this talk, being able to manage your mental state, to tap into the flow state, and have these routines and rituals that are allowing you to perform the best, this is just a glimpse, a hint to what the superpower of the mind is. So if you want to jump and get your ticket, go to the description or go to lifecoachcode.com/superhuman summit. Again, lifecoachcode.com/superhuman summit. You will find that the most incredible thing about this summit is that it costs less than 1 meal. And with the price of less than 1 meal, you get 4 days of transformation with over 25 coaches. So that in itself is the most affordable summit, as far as I know, that you can get. And basically, yeah, I'm the most excited one. We are organizing, but I'm the most excited one about the summit. So thank you, Chuck, again for being part of this podcast. Links are in the description for anyone interested. Thank you again, and see you in the next episode.
Thank you for having me.